The Hell Fucking Yeah podcast.
Matt Paxton. Welcome to the Hell Fucking Yeah podcast. For those who don't know Matt, he is the featured extreme cleaner on the hit show Hoarders and currently the host of Legacy List with Matt Paxton on PBS, season 3 starting in January. And I'm very excited to have you on, and I have a lot of questions for you. So
Dude,
let's
thanks
get
for
into
having
it.
me, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for being here. And I hit record this time.
There we go. That was funny.
You're known to be one of the top hoarding experts in the country and the go-to guy for cleaning, organizing, and downsizing. So how did you wind up on television doing this kind of work?
Well, short answer to that, I'll give you a short and long answer. Short answer is nobody else wanted to do it. Corey, who's the other guy on the show, he had actually started to do a show about crime scene cleanup. And
Okay.
this is 13 years ago, and reality TV wasn't what it is today. And his show about crime scene cleanup was too much for reality TV. And they were like,
Right.
You got to dial it. And now it'd be too boring. Right. But 13 years ago, it was too much. And so they were like, well, what else do you do? And he's like, well, you do hoarding. And they had 4 episodes. They couldn't find 2 more. And I had been cleaning hoarded houses locally in Virginia for 5 years, just helping old ladies, really from church. Honestly, is how I got started. I would clean these little old ladies' attics and basements, and I noticed the messier homes, I didn't have any competition. I didn't know what hoarding was at the time. I was just trying to eat. I was trying to pay for my life. I didn't have any kids or anything.
Sure.
And I was just trying to eat, like trying to make rent. And if I could make like $1,000 a month, I was stoked. Like that was beer and rent. Like I was in, and I knew what I was doing was special because people would they would cry, and then we'd help them, and they would hug me, and then they'd give me a check.
Yeah.
And no one ever said no to my price. And so I was like, oh, and I can tell you now as an entrepreneur 20 years later, if no one complains about your price, it's too low. Right. And these ladies were just happy to get the help. And so I was like, okay, I gotta advertise. I want to grow my business. And so I wrote everybody I could. And I was like, does anyone know anybody on TV? And a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend got me to this guy named Peter Walsh. And I just skipped over a year of communicating with people. Literally, I just didn't give up. I just kept communicating, and I bugged him a lot to get on TV. And he was just like, I can't help you, man. And he was really polite, really nice guy. He's just like, I got my own business. Sorry, good luck. And he was a really good dude. And he got called to do Hoarders, and they were like, he's like, I can't do it, but there's this guy in Virginia. He'll do it. He'll do anything. And so they called me. Hoarders called me, and they were just like, look, we don't need you on TV. We just need a house to clean. We need one more. And so I met them on a Monday. They came in, and after they met me, they were like, you want to be on TV? And I was like, I thought you don't want me on TV. They're like, nah, you're pretty funny. Let's get you on TV. And so by Friday, I was filming an episode in Alabama.
Wow.
And so it was a Monday to Friday. I mean, like on a Monday, I was just trying to eat. And by Friday, I was in Alabama filming a TV show. And then
That's insane.
It didn't air for 6 months more.
Oh, wow. So you didn't even know the magnitude of how big it was going to be.
Dude, no idea. And I don't know your audience, but I'll assume by the title, they'll appreciate this story.
Yes.
My phone actually got cut off. I hadn't paid my bill. And, back then Verizon would let you go like 3 months without paying. And now they don't let you go more than a month. But back then you could float it. And I was deciding which bill I was going to pay. And at that point, they hadn't cut my phone off. But the morning that Hoarders was going to air, I was going to be on TV. They cut my phone off. And so I called them, and I couldn't pay it. I had enough money to pay it. Like I was broke. And I begged him. I was like, dude, and I called it. I was like, do you have a mom? And he's like, what do you mean? And I go, do you have a mom? And he goes, well, yeah, why? Like, I go, well, dude, I've done nothing in 10 years to make my mom proud. And tonight she's going to see me on this TV show. And I go, she's going to call me to tell me she's proud of me. And it's going to go, dee, dee, dee. This number has been temporarily disconnected. And the guy got really quiet, and he goes, I hear you, dude. I got a mom. And he goes, I'm going to turn your phone on for 24 hours. And he goes, but you can't dial out. You can only receive.
Okay.
And I was like, I'll take it. And sure enough, dude, the minute that show aired, no one in the country had seen Hoarding, and my phone started ringing nonstop. And I got a job the next day. I was able to pay my phone bill. My mom called me. She was kind of grossed out, not that proud, but the call went through, and it was awesome. And here we are 20 years later, still cleaning a ton of houses, man.
Right. So, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, so you started out, what did you say? $12 to $15 an hour,
Oh yeah. And I was
cleaning
happy to get
houses.
it. Yeah. Just
There was no thought in your mind of even being on television, even when you were younger.
I wanted an article in the newspaper. That was actually why I agreed to do the show. I did it for almost nothing. I think it was $300 is what they paid me for the first episode.
Right.
Which, by the way, if you offered me $300, I'd still take it. It's still a lot of money if you got nothing,
Sure.
But man, I mean, I've done over 100 episodes, and I never thought that it would be a career. And it just turned out. I mean, I just wanted to get an article in the newspaper, which would get me one more job. And so I was never thinking like, empire. I was thinking next job. Like, can I make $2,000 this month? I made a grand last month. Like, if I could make $2,000, that'd be amazing.
Sure.
And here we are.
Now, is there something you enjoy about doing this kind of work, like cleaning?
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. I love the before and after. Now I really love helping people. Like, at the end of the day, helping people is pretty amazing. It's pretty powerful.
Sure.
But I can pay all my bills now. I mean, back then, I just wanted to pay my bills. If I could break even each month, I was really happy. But knowing I'm helping people is really cool. Visually, I love the nasty stuff. Give me the gross shit. Like I'm assuming I can cuss on this podcast, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I like the nastier, the better, man. Like so I'm a recovering gambling addict, been clean 15 years, but I gambled like my whole life away. And so now, like, I still need that. I'm still an addict. I'm just recovered.
Okay.
And so, like, for me, like, if I walk in a house and I clean 100 dead cats out of a house, like, you give me a house with 10, that's boring, man. I need more. Like, give me give me 102. 100 is not enough. So I really like the stuff that no one thinks it can be done. Like, give me the bigger, the better, the grosser. That's gratifying for me.
Sure.
But I love helping people. I love getting these women that their lives are just destroyed. And then you see them some point along the cleaning process, they decide to take their life back. And you can see on the show, like, they hate me, they scream at me, they're yelling at me, they throw shit at me sometimes, literally. I mean, whatever they do, I'm cool with it because I know they're gonna, I call it the turning point. Like, they're gonna make that turn, and they're just not there yet. And I can be very, very, I can push them through humor. I use a lot of weird humor, and people always say, well, why do you do that? I'm like, because that's what they need, because they're at rock bottom. And I when I see them make that turn, and I see them decide that they're like, fuck this, man, I'm getting my life back, and they do it. And that is like the coolest thing in the world. And I've stayed friends with a lot of them because they do get their lives back.
Sure. So now, essentially, like, I want to go back to your point where you said, recovering addict, you're getting a high off of this in a way.
Totally.
Right? Like,
absolutely.
I really appreciate that, because I myself am a recovering addict. And I use things like this. This is one of my shows. I have many shows and I do many other things. This is my favorite one, though. And it's the same feeling for me. I get this like weird, kind of feeling out of it. And I never intended to help anybody, but there have been episodes where I actually have, and didn't even mean to do it.
That's a bigger high than any.
Yeah, it really is. It really is amazing.
But like, similar, like, you were relentless. Once you decided you want me on the podcast, you didn't stop till you got me on. Right?
Yeah, right.
Like, a buddy of yours hit me up a couple times.
Yeah.
And I'm looking, I can see you got a lot of tattoos. I don't know anybody with one tattoo anymore. I know someone with 100.
Right.
They're apparently really addicting. I don't have any, but like, everybody that gets them. And so, same thing. Like, I'm addicted to positive now, not negative. And I'm totally an addict. I got 7 kids. Like, a lot of people would say that's a lot.
Yeah.
Like, okay, but like, that's what I know now, man. Like, that's my life, and I love it.
I think that's incredible. Yeah.
But I'm addicted to the positive of that, right? And so I'm definitely an addict. I mean, it still messes up your life if you don't. You could have the best. I mean, I got nominated for an Emmy, and I got to stay up for the Emmy thing the other night. But it still took up my time, and it still takes my time away from my family, and so it's still the same. You still have to prioritize your life, even though it's positive.
Right. Yeah, I can absolutely agree with that. And it's funny you said that, because I do the same thing. Like, I hunt people down. It's almost like it's a thrill of the hunt for me. I've had some people on the show that were very, very difficult to get, but I didn't stop until I got them, to the point where I almost had to apologize to them when I finally did meet them face to face. Like, I'm so sorry, I'm a fucking psychopath, but this is what I love to do.
I don't even do it now unless the person hustles, right? Like,
Yeah,
if it's just an email if it's just an email from some random assistant, I'm not
right.
You know, like,
I haven't
that's easy.
I haven't reached that level yet, but when I do, I will do the same exact thing. So we're gonna get to the show Legacy List shortly, but I gotta ask some Hoarders questions.
Yeah, no, dude, I'm the guy from Hoarders. I know it. I'm lucky to have a new show, and I love it. But for the last 13 years, I've done Hoarders, and I always say it's like, it's kind of like, you know, going in. It's probably the wrong audience here, but I was like, you know, no one wants to hear what the new stuff Jimmy Buffett wrote, right? They want the thing he wrote when he was 18, right?
Yes.
Like, and I'm the guy from Hoarders. It is what it is. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Ask the
But at the same time, I enjoy the new show. I checked it out. So, all right? I mean, this is a very vague question, but give me some of the top craziest things you've seen doing Hoarders in these houses. Like, what are the ones that you remember the most?
Yeah, the goats in the goat in the bedroom was pretty, or bathroom. Yeah, I was like, why do you have a goat in your bathroom?
Right.
And she goes, well, because my bedroom is filled with chickens. I was like, fair enough. Like, okay.
Man.
The worst was the cats in the refrigerator. This lady had like 65 cats stuck. You know how you like leave lettuce too long in your refrigerator and it like liquefies at the bottom of the fridge?
Yeah.
Well, cats do the same thing. And it was about 2 inches of like liquefied cat juice at the bottom. And it was like, it was so awful and awesome at the same time. And I'm not trying to put down cats.
Of course.
I'm not a cat guy. You can understand with my career. But this poor woman, she's actually a wonderful woman, amazing woman. And as gross as that was, I'll tell you, it always makes sense. Like their whatever they hoard, if you know their trauma, it's always caused by trauma. If you know their trauma, it makes total sense. And this lady had a couple refrigerators filled to the brim. I mean, they weren't even frozen in the freezer. That's how many there were in the freezer. And it was disgusting. We had to like shave all the hair off our bodies because we couldn't get the smell off of us.
Wow.
It was intense.
That's insane. Now, when there are animals involved, do you have to get like experts in the house to?
Oh yeah, we had a parrot hoard. Yeah, we had a parrot hoard. Like, parrots are no joke, man. They don't poop. They actually secrete an acid, and so that white, it looks like poop. It's actually acidic, and it can destroy you, like absolutely kill you.
Right.
And so you have to get at the beginning, man, we would just go in and like maybe we'd wear an N95 mask. Like, we didn't if it felt good, but now it's like, you know, like we filmed last year during the pandemic. And it was like, people were like, how different was it? I was like, it wasn't at all. Like, all of our safety concerns that you have to have for COVID, we were already meeting with Hoarders. But that first season, I wore shorts into a hoard the first season. You know, and now you're wearing like Tyvek suits, can't have any exposed skin. Like, but back then we just didn't care. But yeah, so with the animal experts, you gotta often have animal control. You have to have some, like with rats, we had to have these rat experts that were able to rescue rats. Rats are the smartest animals like I'd ever encountered. Dr. Zazio, actually, people don't know this, she actually runs a animal rescue farm.
Okay.
She's an animal activist, like to the nth degree. And so she's really good at catching animals. I am not. Like, we had to catch like a couple thousand rats, and Dr. Zazio would just like bing, 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 she'd get them. And like, I would go to get a rat and like they'd get away from me. And then you would have like, you'd set up a trap and like one rat would come in, he'd figure it out, he'd leave, and then no rats would come to us. And so they were clearly figuring out the traps, and then they would go communicate it somehow. And I just couldn't get them. But like, yeah, you have different experts. You have safety is obviously the biggest concern. And, you know, we try to do as much rescue as possible. Unfortunately, it's really hard to rescue cats because they have such a populace, like they can pass, you know, airborne diseases pretty quickly. And a lot of those animals are just they're not
healthy.
They're not healthy, and they need it's better that they get put down. And so that's always a bummer.
Of course.
Sometimes there's criminal neglect in there, and it just has to be, we've had hoards where we get there and we're like, this is illegal. We can't be here. We can't film a show. Like, it doesn't even get to air, you know?
Wow.
And usually that doesn't even get to us being there, but sometimes we'll get pictures and I'm like, nope, you got to call the authorities. Like that's not even a hoard. That's a whole nother level.
Yeah.
And I think that's the saddest because I'll tell you, every animal hoarder actually believes they're doing right for the animals.
Sure.
They actually do love the animals.
Sure.
Sometimes it just gets away from them.
Yeah.
But sometimes like it's more than we would even be comfortable, participating in.
Sure.
And, yeah. I mean, for me, it's, God, there's so many experts. You got to have different ways to remove the stuff. The parrot one was the craziest one because they were just flying around live. So we had to have a vet on set to help us capture the birds, help us transport them. I mean, you name it, we had to do it. We had like 3 people we had a whole, on the rat episode, it was like 3,000 rats.
What?
It was crazy. This is the worst thing over here, man. This guy is amazing. He would get high and then he would he lived out in Mojave Desert. He'd get really high. He would feed all the rats and he would just lay down on the floor on their food and he would let thousands of rats run all over him.
Oh my God.
And I go, when do you know? He's like, you got to try it. And I was like, I'll take your word for it. I'm going to take your word for it. And I said, when did you know you had too much? And he goes, well, one time I could feel a rat licking my eyeball. And I was like, dude, he goes, I could feel his tongue like scratching my eyeball.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm out, dude. Like I was out. I'm out. I can't do this.
Yeah.
And he was just like, it feels great, man. I love it.
Man, you're really missing out.
Yeah, we just like, you got to try it, man. And he was high the whole time we were there, Glenn. But he was out there, man. But you know what? Like for him, again, the story. It makes sense. I mean, like this, I'll tell you, this cat lady with all the cats in her fridge. Her first son had died of an overdose, and she was so broke she couldn't buy him a proper funeral. And so for her, she would pick up these animals that she'd see. She was walking to work. She worked at Walmart, and she's walking to work, and she'd see these animals dead on the road, and she'd pick them up. She'd try to save them, and she was trying to save up to get them a proper burial because in her mind, believe it or not, she couldn't do it for her son, so she wanted to do it for these animals. Right. And as sad and tragic as that sounds, like it actually made sense if you get into her head. It just, again, it got bigger. The positive intentions were there. They just got bigger than she was able to do. And we were able to actually not only get all the animals properly buried, but we're actually also able to get her son properly buried. And one of our disposal partners actually came in and donated a gravestone for her son so he could get a proper burial. It was really cool.
That's unbelievable. So besides like legality issues, did you ever walk away from, I mean, you've dealt with human feces and everything else. Did you ever walk away from a home? It was like, this is too much.
So for physical reasons, sorry.
That's okay.
Physical reasons, I will not walk away from a house for physical reasons because I did get known for the guy that can clean anything.
Right.
And so if I say I can't clean your house, what hope am I giving this person? Right? So I refuse to walk away from a physical home. If there are emotional reasons, like I had one lady that her husband had brought us in, she had basically created like a catacomb kind of around her, like a wall around herself. And her husband was in a wheelchair and he couldn't get to her. And we thought she was this awful, mean person because it was the way the story was portrayed to us. After an hour in that house, we all realized the guy was abusing the woman and the hoard is what protected her from him.
Wow.
And it took us about an hour to figure it out. And so the therapist and I, we talked and it was just like, yep, Matt, you can't be here. You got to leave because she can't handle men at all. And we honestly shouldn't clean this house. And so we made a decision as professionals to walk away and actually put that money towards getting her assistance and getting her out of that situation. And believe it or not, people don't realize A&E backed us on this.
Right.
And like a lot of cable in the middle of reality TV, cable networks get just shit on constantly. But they actually, every time we decided to leave, they backed us up. I got one guy, you probably saw it was one episode, it was in Connecticut. And the whole family was just high as a kite. And they were aggressively attacking us. And
yeah, I actually do remember that.
When I tapped out, I was like, I'm not getting killed for this. Like, I had to have police protection for another like 2 weeks after that.
Wow.
And I took the rest of the year off. That one really messed me up because I really felt like the guy was he was sending us just harassing emails and voice messages. And
wow.
Thank God he was broke and he couldn't like leave the state. Like if he could have come and gotten us, it would have been really scary. And we've had some weird stalkers, you know, on Hoarders, people that watch us, and that gets scary. But that's why we leave, is for safety, or, you know, mainly for the hoarder. But you know, there's always a therapist on set. We wouldn't clean without a therapist, and we provide therapy for a year after.
Right.
You know, people forget that. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, if the therapist says we should stay, we will. Like, the cleaner doesn't really. We can tell our opinion, but at the end of the day, it's the therapist's decision.
Sure.
And we back that up together.
Sure. And, you know, obviously, if you feel unsafe, I mean, have you ever had to go into any foreclosed homes?
Dude, I used to clean foreclosed homes.
Oh, no shit.
I did them in Baltimore, and that was a good business back in the day. And so, in fact, downtown Baltimore. I don't know where. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you know tough neighborhoods, right?
Yeah.
And so I got in there, and one time our job was to break into houses for banks. We would pick the locks, we would break the locks in, or break in the door, and then we would secure the home, tell them how much trash is in there. And Baltimore, I grew up in DC, Baltimore area, and there's some tough towns.
Sure.
And actually, foreclosed houses is how I learned how to really clean fast, because you might break into a home and you got like 20 minutes to empty the place. You know, so I'd bring 10, 20 guys, and a lot of times my guys are guys that come from challenging backgrounds. And I prefer ex-cons. I prefer recovered addicts.
Yeah.
Like, those are guys that work really hard.
Right.
And my crew in Baltimore, everyone was a convicted murderer except for me. I was the only one that hadn't done. I'm the only one that hadn't done 20 years. And by the way, I'll challenge anyone. They're the best workers, best guys I've ever. They changed my life more than I could ever.
Hands down.
And these guys are clean. They're sober. They do such good work. But they're tough, and they know the world they came from. And we were in downtown Baltimore, and this guy's like, "We ain't going in that house." And I'm like, "What?" He knew from some graffiti that we weren't supposed to
tag.
A tag of some kind. And I'm like, "Nah, man, we're good. Banks, we got paperwork." And he's like, "Don't go in there." He's like, "I'm not going in 100." He's like, "I refuse to go in the house." And I should have taken his word for it. He's like, "I'm staying in the truck." He's like, "All right, well, you guard the truck." We break into the house, open the door, and it's MS-13 to the gill, man.
Oh, my God.
There's got to be 50 dudes in there, and it's filled with stuff they've stolen.
Wow.
And I'm just like, "Sorry, guys, wrong house." And I like get out of there. And I look at my guy, and he's like, "You need to go to he points at some dude on the corner, and he's like, "You go apologize to that drug dealer right now, and you get permission to be in the neighborhood." And I'm like, "Yes, sir." So I go to this guy on the corner, and he explains it to me. I said, "Look, apparently I don't know what I'm doing. I'm messed up. I need security. How can I, what do I do?" And he goes, "Well, we got somebody that works security." And so basically from that day on, I learned in certain parts of certain cities, I always have to go to the drug dealers and pay them for local security. And Ronnie explained to me, he's like, "Look, dude, this guy worked for me forever." He goes, that guy's job is just different than your job. You may not like it. You may not think it's appropriate, but he don't want any trouble either. He's just trying to feed his family, just like you're trying to. And he's like, they need to get paid just like we do. And so, I mean, foreclosed homes are insane. And I would never get into that business again. I found out a lot of my employees were going back and living in those houses until the banks came and took them back, because it might be like 9 months in between foreclosures. And we had a lot of in that part of the area, we had a lot of Latino families that if we showed up to do to kick them out, like, they might get kicked, they might get wrapped up in being illegal. And so we learned to, like, come the day before with a letter in Spanish saying, "Hey, look, bank's got us coming tomorrow to foreclose. We're cleaning out. Like, if you shouldn't be here, please don't be here." Right. And get the stuff you don't want stolen, get it out. And so we learned to just communicate better with people and, like, try to all be on the same team.
Sure.
And, like one family, I'd be like, "Look, man, like, the bank's paying me to back up a moving truck to your house. You might as well have me move you down the street, because the bank's paying for it, man." And so, like, we started getting families, they just be like, "Oh yeah, man, if you're throwing it in the truck, just haul it down the street. I mean, we're moving to that house down there." So we would get instead of making it a really bad situation, they'd get a free move. Right. Wow. And so it's all in how you communicate. And we learned all that at Hoarders, learning how do you turn a really bad situation into something positive. Yeah. And man, we saw some crazy stuff. I mean, foreclosures were DC, Baltimore. I wouldn't go to Philly. Like, that was, Delaware was as far as I would go. Right. I know guys that did it in the city. It'd be really hard to do it in a high rise, because, like, how do you foreclose on a 13th floor? Like, right. I mean, and it's so expensive to move trash like that. I hate cleaning out hoards in New York City. It's because it's so hard to, like, basically you got an hour to get that trash out.
Yeah. even just to get down the stairs is
Oh, well, you got to
insane.
hire 2 extra guys just to
Right.
just go in the elevator.
Right.
I mean, it was a nightmare. So I try to stay south of Philly when I can. But you know, I've done a couple crazy ones, and I found I did a hoard in talking about things I found. We were doing a hoard in New York City, and we actually found the original manuscript to Babar, like the cartoon.
Wow.
And in that lady's house, we found who's that guy, the artist with the Campbell's soup cans?
Andy Warhol.
Andy Warhol. We found a Campbell's soup can signed by Andy Warhol.
That is nuts.
And she was like, "Oh yeah, I used to hang out with him." And she used to hang out at Studio 54 with all those guys.
Right.
And at the bottom of the hoard, we found pictures of her hanging out with like Bob Marley and all these crazy, like famous people, because that was just her life back then.
Yeah. This is crazy. This is really, this is all mind-blowing stuff. I never even thought about, like, I mean, did you have to deal with squatters or anything like that?
Oh, well, on the foreclosures,
yeah.
Squatters, totally.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's life. Like, look, everybody, I believe everybody was a good person at some point.
Sure.
And I'm an example. I was a piece of shit for a long time, man. Like, I was not a good person. And, you know, I've had an opportunity to like live a better life and get better. But if you met me at 30, you'd have punched me in the face. You're like, this guy's a piece of shit. You know,
yeah, I think I had that phase at one point. Yeah,
and we all did.
Yeah,
and so I've learned not to judge people. You know, and so like I think that's one reason I'm good at my job. Like, it doesn't matter where you are. Like, I joke. I mean, you probably saw the Hoarders episode where I cleaned out this one guy. He was actually up at St. John's in Queens, and he was he had like a half acre in Queens.
Yeah,
and we're sitting there like cleaning it out, and it was like all metal. And one of the parts of the city was they were like, look, there's a bum living in the guy's yard. And I had to clean out the shack, like the shanty he had made. And the guy had a 5-gallon bucket of piss and a 5-gallon bucket of shit, and then a welder's kit. And he was I don't know if you remember seeing the episode. I mean, he was.
I actually do.
He was pretty intense, and he was off his ass, wasted. And I was like, dude, like, walk me through this. And we're walking in there, and he goes, don't throw away that welder's kit, man. That's how I make a living. And I go, well, that's funny. I go, that bucket of shit is how I make a living. And he goes, I appreciate the way you said that, man. And I said, no. I said, so how did you get here, man? Like, how do you end up living in a shack in the middle of New York City? He's like, I was a stockbroker in the 80s. He goes, this girl broke my heart. I go, really? And he goes, well, I got addicted to crack too. But yeah, she broke my heart, man. And that's how we're here. And I looked at the camera. I go, I guess we're all 4 or 5 decisions away from shitting in a bucket.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
And that stuck. I mean, that stuck. It hit. As soon as that hit the air, this is back when everybody watched TV on Monday nights at 9. You know, there were times that you watched the show, and we were 3 to 4 million people to watch it every Monday night. And I said that, and my social media blew up because people were like, I totally get what you're saying. Like, that's happened to me. Yeah. Like, a couple bad things happen. I don't know where I'd be. And so whether I'm talking foreclosures, whether I'm talking hoarders, whether I'm talking senior citizens that I'm helping now, like, dude, we've all been there, right? Like, we're not any place to judge. But sometimes there's some pretty crazy stories, and I love to tell those stories. But I also like to remind people, like, hey, man, we're all like not as far from that as you think.
Sure.
I always say you're a young guy. Like, we're lucky we messed up really early.
Yeah.
You know, I screwed up in my 20s. Thank God, not my 60s. You know, like, I screwed up in my 20s, and it gave me a career very early. So I've been doing this for 20 years now, and I do this as a career because no one else would do it. I mean, people ask me all the time. They're like, how do you get into that? I'm like, I failed at everything else.
Yeah.
Like, everything. I mean, I was an economist. I went to my degree is in economics, and I worked for the Federal Reserve coming out of college, and I was horrible at it, like horrible. And then I got to Caesar's Palace to be an economist for them, and turns out a 24-year-old kid living on the 7th floor of Caesar's Palace is not really a good idea. You know.
Oh, yeah.
Have a gambling addiction, you know.
That'll put you in a different direction.
A couple triggers, and so I didn't last very long there, and I couldn't get a job, and that's why I started cleaning old ladies' attics. And people were like, "Oh yeah, that makes total sense." But like, so if you look at my career, most people say it was a failure, and it was for like 15 years, and then I slowly just churned and hustled and kept helping people, and eventually turned out pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I think from your experience and the things that you've learned and the things that you can now apply to almost everyone's life that you come across
Totally.
is the complete opposite of a failure. I think it's incredible.
Well, you have.
I really
I think
do.
you have to fail to succeed. Like if you haven't failed,
Absolutely.
no way you
Absolutely.
can succeed. I
Yeah.
mean, no way. And I mean, I personally, I like give me a guy that's done 20 years, like
Right.
not a guy that's done 1 year. A guy that's done 1 year still thinks he's tough, still thinks he's that he can do
Sure.
it. I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
Like,
It's nothing to learn,
yeah, they're not
Yeah.
there yet. They haven't failed
Yeah.
enough yet. So I mean, a lot of times I'll turn down. I'm like, hey, bud, you're not there yet. Like you haven't lost your house. You haven't got divorced. Like, I mean, like someone's like, well, I lost my kids. I lost my, wife. I'm like, great. You are
Right.
perfect to come work for me because you hit rock bottom.
Sure.
Like, I need people to hit rock bottom before they can, really do the work that we do because our clients are at rock bottom. And this is really spiritual on here, but like, you can't like shame somebody out of rock bottom. Like if someone's at the bottom of the hill, you got to go down there, give them a hug, and walk out together.
Right.
But if you shame them from the top and tell them they've done wrong, nothing's going to work there, and they're just going to keep messing up because they've been doing things. So I love people that are really messed up.
Yeah, that's really amazing. You definitely have to have guts to do what you do. Literally,
or be desperate. But yeah.
But it's definitely. Would it be easy to say that it's toughened you as a person? Like,
oh yeah,
like absolutely. So I the reason I'm asking that is because I can tell on the show and watching it as it's progressed that you just kind of throw things out now. Like you go into a house and you just throw something out, like right off the bat, to get the person upset, essentially.
Yes. Oh, you're seeing my strategy here. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. So, all right, we'll walk through that strategy.
Yeah.
So what you don't see on the show is I spend a day with them before there's cameras, and I get to know them, and we hang out, we visit, we sit on the front porch. I don't go in the house. We just hang out, get to know each other. Because I'm able to say a lot more to these people because we're equal. They got to know my backstories. They got to know where I failed. They don't think I'm coming in here judging them.
Sure.
And so I already know what kind of person they are. We're already friends when we start. And so, yeah, I used to I'd take my time. It would take like a day or two. And again, I've been doing this 20 years. I already know they're going to flip out on me. So I try to get it done in the first 20 minutes.
Right.
Because they're not comfortable. Like, this is awful. So I'll take something that I don't think matters and I'll break it, or I'll throw it on the track, or I'll you'll see me say, look, you can see everything in the truck. Nothing's going to go in the truck until you see it. And then I'll take an old vase that I know doesn't matter because it's got a Goodwill sticker on it, and I'll just toss it. I know they just bought it. That's my great-great-grandma's.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, did she buy it at Goodwill this week?
Right.
And I'll throw it really loud. I'll throw it really loud on the back of the truck so it smashes. And then they'll run over. And I'll be like, I did that. So I take full blame so that no one on the crew, or I'll have one of the crew members go over and say, hey, I think Matt just broke something. Because I want her to trust somebody. If she's not going to trust me, I want her to trust one of the crew guys.
Sure.
And one of the trash guys. And so, I mean, there's a lot of manipulation going on purpose because I want them to not only know that it's going to happen, it's going to break, but also it's going to be okay. Like that is, trust me, if I'm at your house cleaning it, a broken vase is the least of your worries, right? Like it's not what got us here. You've gotten through a lot more. And so I use that as exercise to remind people like, hey man, we got through this. It's going to be all right. And a couple other things are going to get broken. No big deal. But yeah, if you watch it 10 years ago, I would tiptoe and be really polite and nice. And now let's get it over with so we can get to that, making the turn, feeling better a lot faster, a lot
Absolutely. Faster. So what's like the usual excuse people have for hoarding?
Well, it's the D's, man. Divorce or death. Someone's died or someone's divorced you.
Right.
Or abuse. There's a lot of abuse, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of them went through physical and sexual abuse. And it happened when they were young, and I'm getting them now, like when they're 60. And so they've dealt with that abuse deep down for like 30, 40 years. Grief is subjective. Like I used to say, I'd be like, divorce, really? Divorce, caused all of this?
Right.
I had one lady that she took her own feces and she wiped it all over the door frame. And then she would take a shit. She'd wipe it all over the floor, all over the door. And then she filled her front room, her foyer, with old diapers. She called them recycled. And I remember thinking like, what, the first time I was like, that's disgusting. And you see it 100 times. I was like, that's disgusting, gross. And then after a couple times, I realized, I was like, oh, that's brilliant. And I said to the lady, I said, she had wiped poop everywhere. And I said, ma'am, I said, this is brilliant. She goes, what? I go, it's brilliant. Nobody's going to come inside.
Right.
I go, you got shit everywhere.
Right.
And I go, this is brilliant. I said, this is the best wall I've ever seen. And I said, your kitchen looks pretty decent. And she starts laughing. She goes, what do you mean? I go, this is the only room. I go, you live in the rest of your house. I can tell. I go, no one's going to come in. I go, it's absolutely brilliant. I go, I really applaud you.
Yeah.
And she goes, Matt, you're the first person that's ever stayed. I was like, I ain't going anywhere. I go, I'm going to take my time. I go, you can tell me your story. I go, but we're going to clean this house. And I go, I just think it's brilliant what you did here. I go, but I'm not going. I said, we're going to stay clean. And she just laughed. And she said, can I give you a hug? I was like, sure. You notice I do a lot of hugs because hug is a way to communicate. And I was just like, girl, like, I salute you, but like, we don't need this shit anymore. Like, let's get going on the real stuff. But for her husband had abused her. She had lost her job. She had lost her family. Like, she had lost everything.
Sure.
And so it wasn't just divorce. It was actually a lot of other things she had lost. And that was the one where we had to stop a couple times. And Dr. Green had to come in and do like really hardcore therapy with her.
Sure. And
we had to step away because she had to do like, I mean, and you know, some what hurts you and me may not hurt another person, and vice versa. You know, but
absolutely,
like, if you're hurt, you're hurt. And no one chooses to be a hoarder. I'll tell you that. If you got a hoarder, if people are listening and you got someone in your family that's a hoarder, I promise you something bad's happened to them.
Sure.
Now, don't run and be like, oh, Matt said your uncle molested you. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there's something that, you know, grief is subjective and you never know what is going to hurt the other person. But something happened to that person and it really bothered them.
Absolutely.
Like,
it's really interesting. I wonder what the connection is between, you know, past trauma and just filling a house with shit. Like literally and figuratively.
I mean, think it'll explain how bad the trauma is, where like you're filling your emptiness, your void with stuff, and that stuff makes you feel good, right? No different than drugs or alcohol. Right? Like for me, I get it, man. I used to love getting messed up, right? I used to love it. Love getting drunk, love getting high.
Absolutely.
And for me, gambling was the big one. I would sit down, man, and nothing felt better to me than having $100 on a hand of blackjack, because I might win, I might lose. And it was fun.
Sure.
And if I won, I was the man, right? And if I lost, it's like, well, that's how it goes. No big deal. And I could justify anything, right? But for a lot of people, buying something online on Amazon, it makes them feel good.
Sure.
For a minute. Just like heroin, makes you feel good for
shopping
a minute.
Is an absolute, you know, can be an absolute
shopping is, dude, I think it's as bad
one of the biggest.
I think it's worse than drugs.
Yeah.
And think about hoarding is the only disorder. Like, think about it. If you had to put every needle, every bottle you've ever used, you had to stack it on your front yard for everybody to see. Like every bottle of beer I've ever drinking on my front lawn,
right?
Like people 10 miles away could smell it.
Sure.
Like, so I will argue hoarding is like the worst disorder because it's visual as well as emotional.
Right. Now
it's hard, man. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you got the people buying stuff on Amazon and the shopping addicts, but I'm talking about the people who have like stacks of newspapers and use. I mean, maybe it is subjective. Maybe it's valuable to them in some kind of way.
It is. So books and paper is a really big deal in hoarding. And it's because those people are super smart, believe it or not. You'll notice a lot of hoarders were teachers. They were doctors. They were lawyers. Like they were super smart. Doctors, social workers, it's teachers, social workers, and nurses, teachers, and social workers are the top 3 careers for hoarders. And they help people. Wow. So they hold on to things because they think those things are going to make people better. Rarely does a hoarder hold on to things for themselves. They're usually holding on to give it to someone. And that giving it is what they're excited about.
Wow.
But it takes a wrong left turn. Right. And then it just gets filled. And the animal hoarding, like that's all about wanting to take care of these animals and wanting to be appreciated and loved. Like, believe it or not, man, I could go for 10 hours on this, but it's all about wanting emotion and love and affection. And it just gets really lost in all the stuff. Yeah. And could you imagine, like, I mean, I think now, like, thank God I had to kick gambling in the 90s, right? Before you had to get to Vegas or Long Island. You had to get to Vegas or to the place by you. Connecticut. Well, no, Connecticut, they wasn't even there yet.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And Boston wasn't either. I mean, you really had to go to that crappy place, the Taj Mahal. Those were the only place you could gamble. You know, so you You had Atlantic City. You had to take a bus up to Atlantic City,
That's
which was
very true.
disgusting, by the way. Or, and we used to do that in college, or you had to fly to Vegas. And there were a couple Indian casinos, but not much. But like now you can gamble on your phone, man. Like
I was just going to say that.
imagine having to kick that now.
Yeah.
The way technology and the access to gambling is.
It's funny in New York, they just opened, like on Long Island, they just opened the first casino.
Yeah.
But it's all electronic. There's no dealers. Like it's literally electronic blackjack, electronic poker. It's very strange and it seems very rigged.
How could it not be? My God.
Right. But now the New York Lottery, now they own the casino. They actually started, because it was only legal in Jersey to gamble on your phone. Now it's legal in New York through New York Lottery. And I mean, it's already a problem. You can go down to your local store over here and play quick draw. You can sit down and
it's crazy.
Play Keno. You don't need it even closer to people who already have the addiction. It's kind of cruel.
It's crazy. I mean, I
get it, but it seems like a bit much.
It is, and look, we can say the same about. I mean, you can buy anything on Amazon in 5 seconds now. Like, at some point, is it on us as consumers to like get our shit together? Probably, right. But
everything's easily accessible.
It ain't getting. No, it's not getting. It's not getting easier. I'll say that. Right. But I mean, I also have something to lose now. I have kids. I have a wife, and like I don't want to. That's why I don't mess up. Not because I'm like this spiritually good person. I'm old, man. I'm tired. I don't want to mess up. I'm too old to start over, right? And I really love my kids, and I am lucky that I get to see what happens to these people 30 years later.
Sure.
And it's awful.
Absolutely. Not only do you get to see it firsthand, but just like you said at the beginning, being able to help these people is ultimately the best feeling you can have.
I'm one of the few. I mean, I get reminded daily. All I have to do is go on talk about needing a fix here. I just look on my phone and I'm like, I get 20 messages a day. I've helped somebody. And like that's the greatest thing in the world. And I get to do it over and over and again. And so people, the Hoarders it got sold to Netflix. And so now it's on all the time. Right. And so every day there's someone new that's seen what I do. And I get messages from preachers. I get messages from, God, what, I mean, who knows what? And they all are like, hey man, I finally understand my mom now. Or I finally understand my grandma. Like, thanks for the way you said this, or thanks for what you did. And it's something I said 13, 14 years ago. Right. But like it moved them this time. And so I'm very lucky. I get to help people, and I'll continue to get to help people forever. And and it pays my bills, which is really cool. Very few of us get to do that. Now, did I think all that would have happened 20 years ago when I was trying to help old ladies? No, man, I was just trying to eat. Sure. Sure. But I knew when people hugged me, I knew it was something real. Yeah. Like, I knew that was legit. I just didn't know how to monetize it yet. Sure. And the intention was always there. And if you keep at anything, it'll happen. Yeah. I mean, podcast is a hard hustle, man. Like, it's not like you're making millions, right? Right. You enjoy it. And at some point it will provide. Like it just does. And in anything you do, if you really love it, this is so cheesy, but like, if you really love what you do and you just keep hustling, eventually it will pay off. I mean, I don't mean to brag, but I am the best cleaner in the company. There's no one that cleans houses better than me. And it's because I've been doing it for so long. Absolutely. I can't hit a baseball. Right. Because I don't do that. Right. Yeah. And that's fine. I'm the least athletic man you'll ever meet. No. But it's funny, as I'm teaching my kids now, they don't really understand what I do. And they're like, oh, he's on TV. And then one of my kids goes, oh, he helps people. He helps people clean their houses on TV. It's like, I got one son that's starting to get it. But like, they want to know why I can't do parkour. And like, why am I not good at video game? That's actually, they're like, so-and-so's dad is really good at video, Breath of the Wild. I'm like, I'm not. I don't have 3 hours a night to play Breath of the Wild, But like, to them, that's what matters right now. But it's just learning. I'm very comfortable with who I am and what I do, and it's because I get that mental payoff each week. Like, I know I make a difference. I don't have I sleep. I'll tell you, I sleep in 5. The minute my head hits the bed, I'm out. Absolutely. Because I used to worry. I used to when I was living a bad life, like, had all these worries. Sure. And now it's like, I'm out cold because I got no, like, I can leave my cell phone anywhere because it doesn't matter who picks it up, right? Like, that's a good life. And if you're listening and you heard me say that,
That's so
I'm
true.
going to say it again, dude. It doesn't matter who picks up my cell phone because my life is clean and good.
Yeah.
And now it took me 20 years to get there, but man, I sleep well.
Right.
And again, when I gave up, I used to try to get rich. Like, I was always trying to get rich, and all my businesses were based about money. And when I gave up and just said, I'm just going to try to help people, like, that's when the money started figuring itself out.
Yeah. That's insanely inspirational to me, because I've been kind of lost like my whole life, really. I'm 40 years old now. And I mean,
I'm 47 or 46, and it really didn't start going well till 40 for me.
Okay. Yeah. Cause same thing here in a way. Like, I tried different colleges, different trade schools, different trades. I cut hair. I actually cut hair.
Yeah.
I had my own business for a while, and the pandemic like kind of
killed
it. I still do it. I do it from home. Don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
And
well, I hope a couple.
But it gave me this time. Like, I'm married 12 years.
Yeah.
No kids. But it gave me this time to do something I've always wanted to really do. I started this magazine like 20 years ago, and I just, life started and I threw it away. It's what I love to do. I love to talk to people and just find out interesting shit about people. And
dude, I don't know, a barbershop with a podcast studio in the back sounds interesting, man.
I'm literally, so right now, I'm literally in my garage.
Really interesting to me.
Yeah. I'm literally in my garage, and I've kind of closed off this area to keep air and heat in here. My barbershop's right here.
Yeah, but like, think about it. You got a glass box in the backs of a storefront, and let anyone use it, man. When you're not using it, and you're gonna fill your barbershop. Like, it's really interesting, man. I think it's cool.
Thank you.
I mean, so that's a great example. Like, two things that probably shouldn't go together, right?
Right.
But like, if you love both, like, why not?
Yeah.
Like, that's one thing great about the pandemic. Like, people are doing, I mean, I know a lot of guys that are trying to get into cutting hair now because they dig it, right? And they dig the relationships. I mean, they dig all that. I've seen, a girl used to work for me. I was like, is this millennial kid? I was like, what does your boyfriend do? She's like, oh, he likes to make cheese. And I just thought this guy was full of shit. And I was like, what an idiot. Like, making cheese, right? And I made fart jokes all the time. I was like, oh, did he cut the cheese? And I read in the paper the other day, this dude owns like one of the biggest cheese companies on the East Coast. And it's taken him 10 years, but he provides like high-end cheeses to all these really fancy restaurants. And like, who am I to judge that guy, right? He's probably killing it financially, but he loves cheese. And he went out and he learned it. And I know he went and like worked on some guy for free for like 2 years just to learn it. And like, here the guy is killing it now. You know? And you think anyone supported him? He said, I'm going to make cheese, living on his girlfriend's house. Like, they probably made fun of him, and now the guy's killing it. And he eats really good cheese.
It's crazy. I mean, I've literally been doing this podcast since September of last year. And since then, I've done, I'm on a radio network. I do other shows.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not raking in any money, but it's all coming from my heart. And eventually I think it will pay off. Actually, the guy who put us in touch, Chris, Fences.
Yeah.
I made a music video for him. I've always had this creative outlet. I never knew what to do with it. And now it's just all like kind of flowing out of me.
And now it's managing it, right? It's like, how do you not get
right now? I'm like all over the place. So
that kid's going to blow up at some point. I mean, people that listen to him love him.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's got a decent following. And here's my little video I made of him. Like, here's the doll I made.
That's him. My God, man.
This is him. So this is a Star Wars Liam Neeson that I made completely. Like, drew the tattoos on and everything. And he lives in California. I'm in New York. So I was like, how can I make the video with him in it without him? And there you go.
Well, it was interesting.
Hasn't come out yet, but it's coming out soon.
The whole reason I found that guy was I was scrolling through Instagram, and I'm like, how does a guy that has this few followers, how is he verified? And so then I was like, interesting, because I can't get verified to save my life on Instagram. And so I was like, this guy's killing it. And so I went on and I looked at it, and then I heard his music, and I was like, oh man, this guy's special.
Yeah.
Right. And then you want to, he's like, hey, can you do me a favor? I'm like, of course. Like, and my wife was like, why are you giving this guy time? And I'm like, because that's the kind of guy that, like, right now he's asking you for a favor. I go, someday we'll be begging him to play like a bar mitzvah, and he'll be like a massive star. I was like,
Yeah.
you just never know. And I was like,
Absolutely.
but as you get older, there's some people you do know, and you're like, that dude is going to make it because he's relentless. He doesn't give up.
Yep.
Like, you don't have any followers right now, but like that dude is gonna make it. I don't know what at, but he will. And
Right.
I want to know that I helped him. You know?
Yeah. So full circle, and I'll wrap this little part up. I met him online like 20 years ago when he first put out some music, and I was doing my magazine. I did a little interview with him.
Yeah.
Fast forward to last year, I wanted to start getting into this. I got in touch with him, and we're literally like best friends now. I talk to him every day. And he's helped me with this podcast so much. He gets me like a lot of my guests. He got me you.
Well, he's just, hey man, do me a favor. I was like, of course.
Yeah.
You know.
His soon-to-be wife, actually, Maxine, is a very big fan of you. So I want to give a shout out to Maxine, because I was going to put for Maxine at the end of the video as a joke, but that kind of sounds like she passed. So shout out to Maxine, and they're getting married very soon. So,
well, congrats and thank you, Maxine. Thanks for listening. It's crazy. We have, I never underestimate a fan, dude. You're really lucky to have them, like, period. And my kids hate it. They're like, because people will stop us. And I'm like, mildly famous. Like, people don't really stop me unless they really watch a lot of TV.
Right.
And, or if it's like your grandma loves me, but like your kids, or, you like I was actually involved in a really big moving company for a long time. And we had these big investors, and this guy was like, look, man, I don't know who you are. You're on these TV shows, like, blah, blah. And I say, hey, look, man, I go, at lunch, I want you to call your wife and your mom and see if they know who I am. And he's just like, this is like billionaire guy. And he's just like blowing me off. And his suit costs more than I'll ever make. And he comes back at lunch and he's like, I'm embarrassed to say this, man. My wife wants me to get a picture with you. He's like, she's a huge fan. And I was like, yeah, man. Like, don't underestimate who is in charge of the wallet at home.
That's so true.
And he's like, oh, you're right. He's like, totally. The guy ended up investing in our company. It was pretty funny.
Wow.
It was really funny. I mean, I've been very lucky. I mean, I've had a really good, I've sold 2 businesses that make clean houses and then moving company. And I'm able to just I just write books and do TV now. And I'm really, really lucky. Yeah. I do a lot of education with like senior. I mean, I've really transferred even away from hoarding. I still do a lot of hoarding, but majority of my work is now in like working with aging population and helping them, believe it or not, get their memories and get their stories out of their stuff. Like, you know, and it's crazy. Like, I mean, I sold a positive show about aging Americans, and it was no hoarding. It's called Legacy List. It's got no hoarding. It's got no drama. All it is like your grandma talking about her china, right? But I use my old podcasting skills on the show, because to me it's like, okay, this is your dad's wallet. Tell me about your dad, right? And they start telling these stories about people they love. And I pitched that show to about 40 cable networks, and they all said no. And then I'd given up on it. And PBS was like, well, we'll look at it. And very slowly, as we started working with them, I mean, in fact, one of the major networks goes, are there any like good-looking granddaughters that will argue and fight over this stuff? And I was like, I'm sure there is, but that's not like the show I'm trying to make.
Right.
Like, I was like, I just want to hear about like,
that's like TLC.
It was Bravo. Bravo was all over it. And it would have been a great show for them, but it's not the show I wanted to make. Right. And then I've been really lucky. I got nominated for an Emmy 2 years later, right? And everybody said no to that show. And my first season on PBS got nominated for an Emmy because I stuck to what I believed, right? And let me tell you, there's no money in public television, and that's okay. Like, I'm out making a really good show about fascinating people telling their stories, and like slowly it's coming. And and like we're getting great sponsors now. It's really, really coming. And so it's funny. I mean, I'm filming season 3 right now. Right. And like, the stuff we find, man, let's talk about stories. Like, we had one lady that we found a flag, a 46-star flag in her attic. And I was like, how'd you get this? She's like, I don't know. My grandpa had it. We never understood why. And we started doing research, and we're like, well, there weren't flag stores. Like, you didn't buy flags at a store when there's 46 states. Sure. And then you start asking, well, what are the other 4? Or no, 44, as far as 44-star flag.
44.
And it turns out it was her grandfather was a train conductor, and he drove the train to the day that Utah became a state. And he drove all the politicians, and this flag was hanging on the side of the train.
Wow.
And it's like they made one, and he
Yeah,
had it, and it was been sitting in her attic for 100 years.
That's unbelievable.
then,
I was watching an episode of the other day, actually. So I have YouTube TV, so it's like not real cable.
Yeah,
but it kind of is.
YouTube as well, yeah.
So I was able to record the show, and it gave me an episode because there's no on demand.
Yeah.
But it was Coventry, Connecticut. I used to live in Connecticut, so it was Coventry, Connecticut.
David Hayes.
Wait, yeah, you found Picasso's in the attic.
We found a Picasso, man, and we found a Salvador Dali in the attic.
Yeah, Salvador Dali. I'm like, holy shit!
He knew about the Picasso, but he didn't know about the Dali. I'll say what's fascinating, man. That's something we learned doing the show. Like, I didn't realize Picasso was a bit of a hoard at the end of his life. Like, he was just trying to get laid, and and I respect that. We all do, you know. And he would go into the city in New York, and he would he'd invite all these models, right? And he would, and then he'd say to the restaurateur, be like, "Well, I got it. I'm paying the bill," and he would write a check, but then he would draw a picture on the check, and knowing that the restaurant would not throw the check away, they would not cash it because it's art, right? And so he did it apparently everywhere, and it was his way of getting free meals. And it's like so cheap, but so brilliant at the same time. I was like, oh, he's still brilliant,
Right.
And he was just trying to impress women the whole time. And we found one of his and he would draw anything and sign it. But he was friends with this guy, David's dad. And they would go eat together and do stuff. And he was just, the stuff that place, you got to go there, by the way, and see that place. It is unbelievable. It's a David Hayes Museum now. And
is it?
It's up there by University of Connecticut.
Okay.
And if you're there, go to the dairy bar at University of Connecticut. They have an
I've been there.
Major. Holy crap. Why didn't I know this when I was applying for colleges? Here's the thing. Here's the thing with the show. I found a Picasso and a Salvador Dali, and I'm telling you about the ice cream at the place that we stayed at, right? That ice cream was unbelievable.
They make it right in front of you. They got the machines in the back. That place is incredible.
They made us these ice cream sandwiches that were the size of a hubcap. Yeah. And it was the greatest thing I've ever eaten.
Yeah. I lived in Connecticut for 8 years, and we would, we kind of lived in the regular, middle class neighborhood, but we'd always try to find there's so many cool little country places out in Connecticut. And Coventry is definitely one of them.
We're cool really lucky. We're traveling the country now. I believe you can find history in anyone's attic. I really believe that. And I'm kind of on a mission to just get our grandparents to tell their stories before they die. Sure. And the show has done that. It's called Legacy List because I want people to tell their legacy. Yeah. And I'm telling you, man, I'm just loving it. And it was, I had to take a break from Hoarders for a while because it was just emotionally, it was too heavy.
Yes. This is the complete opposite of Hoarders.
Totally. It's just that box of pictures and that, why'd your grandpa have that trophy that was sitting on the mantle? Right. When I was a kid, I never forget this. When I was a kid, my piano teacher had me clean out her house, and I found an Olympic medal, a bronze medal in one of her drawers. And her husband, they lived in the Czech Republic at the time, and that's not even a country anymore, right? It's what was but back then it was what he wanted for track and field. And I remember I was 10 or 12, I was the age of my sons now, and I remember just getting so curious, how first of all, how could a person be from another country, not America? I didn't understand that. Right. And then to understand, you have an Olympic medal in a drawer. I couldn't understand that. Why isn't it framed? And they just were very private people, and they didn't believe in publicizing things. Sure. And so I love telling these stories. It's been in me for a long time, and I'm very lucky to get to do this for a living because I just get to help people now. I still get to help people clean up their houses, but now I get to help people tell the stories. And I dig it. I really love it.
It is really cool. I'm addicted to it, and I can't wait till the next one pops up. Honestly,
incredible, man. Incredible.
So when is it on?
We start in January, first week of January on PBS. Honestly, now we've got 2 seasons out, so just check your pbs.org. You can always watch it on mylegacylist.com. Both seasons 1 and 2 are on, and then we launch first week of January. And I'm lucky. I'm taking the winter off, man. I'm gonna relax and come back first of the year and watch this new season. And then we're traveling around the country. We've got 4 more episodes to film. We're heading out west. We're going to Tahoe, New Mexico, and where are we going? I get to finish up in. Believe it or not, I've never been to Austin my entire life.
Oh, that man, Austin's amazing.
I've always wanted to go to Austin city limits.
It's so cool. And, yeah,
we're finishing up in Austin, so I get to finally see Austin.
Check out the bats at the bridge. The bats. So every night around 7:30, these like 1.5 million bats come out of this cave.
Really?
And they fly in the same pattern around the buildings around the city, and then just go back in every night. Really? It's incredible.
Okay, we will go check it out. That's never heard of it.
You ask anybody that lives there or works there, they'll know exactly what you're talking about, and they'll tell you where to go.
There's a barbecue place we got to go to apparently, and there's.
Oh man, if you're really into food too, check out a place called Casino El Camino.
Okay.
It's been on the Food Network. I think it was. I don't know if it was on Diners, Drive-In, Dives. One of those shows.
Is it a burrito place?
No, it's a burger joint.
Burger joint. Okay.
And get the green chili fries. They're on.
Everybody's like, I'm gonna send you a list of places you got to eat.
Yeah.
Everybody. We're gonna have to stay like 3 extra nights to eat all these places.
Yeah.
And Rogan sent me a bunch. He's like, "Oh, dude, go here, go here, go here." And he's like, "This is incredible." Yeah. Hey, I want to tell you a quick funny story about this. Really,
please.
And I'm going to end on this.
Yeah.
Talking about Europe. This is your journey on podcasting. Like, I literally begged people to get me on their podcast when I first started, and the Sklar brothers invited me on. They were very kind, and then they got me on Rogan, and then Rogan got me on Stern, and then 6 years later, I get a call from Jimmy Kimmel, a text message, and he's like, "Hey, I need you to come on my show." He's like, "I'm doing a parody on Hoarders. I need you to be the cleaner." And I thought it was a friend pulling a joke on me. And I finally call, and he's like, "Oh yeah, no." I was like, "How'd you get my number?" And he's like, "Oh, I heard you. I heard you on a bunch of stuff. I heard you on Kimmel. I heard you on Sklar Brothers. I heard you on Rogan. I heard you on all these places." And he's like, and got your information from Stern. And it's just like, I mean, that was 6 years prior that I did those things. And you just keep churning. You just keep churning, and it's crazy. You just keep working. Like, I believe if you just keep working and doing good work, it eventually pays off. I really believe that.
Well, that's all I really need to hear. And I'm on that path. I'm on the path of I'm just going to keep doing shit and doing things and doing it until something happens.
You need to open a store, fill the chair, and put a podcast in the back and open it up for anybody to do their own podcast in your studio. I'm telling you, it'll take off, man. It'll take
That's
off.
A brilliant idea. I really like that.
I'm not putting any money towards the real estate on that. But, other than that, I think you'd kill it, man.
I really appreciate that.
Well, you're doing a great job branding yourself, man. It was, my assistant was like, "I don't know if we should do that podcast." And I was like, "We should definitely do that podcast." I was like, "This guy's going the other way." And that's the people you support. If everyone's going this way, I'm not interested.
Yeah. No, you know what?
The other way.
It's really funny. I started doing this. I don't even know where I came up with a name. I was talking to Chris. I was like, I don't know what to call it. I don't even know what it's about. I just want to talk to interesting people.
Good, dude. Your logo's good.
Thank you. It took me 3 logos to get there.
Well, your logo's good and your vibe is good. And I would say go bigger, man.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid, man. Go big. Just bug everybody.
I appreciate that, man. You know what? I do have a little bit of social anxiety. It's hard for me to talk. In a way, this is my way of facing that fear, and
so I would lead with that.
Stepping out of my comfort zone. You know what I mean?
I don't
think I'm necessarily talented or anything. I
just like
talking to people.
Man. I'm not either. I just learned to
just
embrace what you like. I focus on my failures because I was so bad, right? I mean, I would embrace your social anxiety and say, I have this, and here I am. This is me getting out there. Maybe it's the second thing you say. But don't be afraid to admit it, because there's a ton of people with it. And, I mean, that's 2 of my sons have it. And this is and you're coming right at it, right? I mean, you are putting yourself, having to ask people and then interviewing them. Holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
I mean,
I begged someone so much one time, that it was someone I really Laura Jane Grace from Against Me. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the band. I've been a fan since I was a teenager. And at this point, I'm this person fucking hates me. I'm one of their biggest fans. You know what I mean? But I was you know what? I don't even care.
She remembers you though.
Yeah. And then I have her on, and it turned out great.
Yeah, of course. Dude, we all get asked to do so many things. Sometimes it's just the one that's the loudest.
Right.
And like I had some guys I like, the Minimalists, which is like a group that I adore and love, and they refuse to acknowledge me. They will not acknowledge me. They've never. And I'm like, dudes, I got an Emmy, you didn't. Like, fuck you,
Yeah.
And I went on and I basically aggressively pushed on a post about a podcast about hoarding. I was like, I'm the guy that needs to be on this because they won't respond to me on email. I was like, I need to be on your podcast. And I go to all their fans, I go, tell these guys they need to have me on their podcast. And it ends up blowing up, right? And they took the post down and still won't respond. So I'm doing the same thing you're doing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Right. Yeah. I'm gradually becoming more and more annoying, and it's working.
Dude, I would just keep doing what you're doing, man. Like,
thank you. I really appreciate that.
Think about the cutting idea, because I'm telling you, if you have a free studio where people can use it, dude.
Yeah.
People are gonna sit in their chair a lot.
I think it's a really good idea.
All right, dude. We're good. I appreciate. Hey, man, reach out anytime. You never know.
Matt, yeah, I'd really like to keep in touch. Actually,
dude. Seriously, if you just have one day, you're like, hey, I need 5 minutes. I need to bug you about it. I need to ask your opinion on something. Seriously.
I think you're fantastic, and I really enjoy.
Well, thank you, dude. And look, someday I'll be begging to be on your show. Don't forget that. Dude, true story. I'm gonna end with this. True story. We had a PA on Hoarders, and he was a beast. The dude worked his ass off. Right, worst job. Got his coffee, did everything, and cleaned shit off our shoes, literally. And he was like, I'm trying to get to LA. So he just wanted a ticket to LA. That's it. We all were like, we're going to work for you someday, Chris. Someday we're going to work for you. Fast forward 12 years later, Chris is now the head of finance at Netflix. And we all send him, we're all sending him pitches every week. And he's like, guys, stop. I can't. I love you guys. Appreciate the first job. But I can't do this. I have a much bigger job. But I'm a legit believer that the people that are supposed to pass you do. And you're begging them for work someday. So don't, you got to get the mentality of, oh yeah, he is going to be begging to be on my show someday.
I'm very inspired right now. I really appreciate you.
Good. Yeah. Well, hey dude, I really appreciate you having me.
You know what? I really appreciate you coming on here, and everything that you do, all the work that you do, and just what you just told me is just so inspirational. I really appreciate it.
I believe I help people, but I do it with a bunch of dead cats and really good and so people hear it. They're willing to hear it because it's a new way to hear it. So whatever any of your listeners are doing, I think the lesson is I didn't do anything different. I'm just helping people. But I'm in a place where people see it and hear it. So do what you do, but just make sure it's not, they're not, I don't want to be fifth in anything. Right? I'm the best at what I do because no one else wanted to do it. Right. And that's okay.
And one thing I ask everybody before we go is, on a scale from 1 to hell fucking yeah, how much did you enjoy being here today?
Dude, hell fucking yeah, man.
Hell fucking yeah. Awesome. Matt, thank you so much for being here. I really, this was really kind of mind blowing, man. Matt, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, dude.
All right, dude. Peace.
Hell fucking yeah! It's the Hell Fucking Yeah podcast.